Yeah, so I think the introduction is already made. I'm gonna speak about what's really happening in electric vehicle and how that is sort of shaping the next generation of mobility that's coming forward, and also how AI kind of comes quite well and fits in to this whole change that's happening in the mobility sector today, right? This was actually me just having fun with AI and trying to figure out and generate stuff. Yeah, just because we were discussing AI. So I want to start with the story, right? It's slightly diverging, but I think it makes sense. So at Ather, we have been like there from past 10 years now. 2013 is when we started, and started with a very small group of people trying to build a full-blown electric vehicle from scratch, right? So there was this time when, back in 2016, when we 2015 actually, when we figured out that we want to unveil the product because the world hasn't seen it. And at a, the plan was like somewhere around 6-8 months from that time, but there was an opportunity to showcase our product in this event called Surge that was happening for the first time. A tech event happening in India, in Bangalore, a very different setting, not the usual product launches that you'd see or unveils. And that sort of started somewhere around December of 2015. And we were like, okay, this seems interesting, but how much time do we have? And we were just on a meeting, and all of us like kind of sitting and discussing about it. I had just come back from a vacation, so I had no clue. And they're like, we have 2.5 months. I'm like, okay. And we didn't, and by that time, we never had a full vehicle built. We had something which was running as a mule. We had something which was like a clay model that was done, and everything was digitally there in some places, but we were like, okay. But somehow that day, everyone in that room said, okay, let's make it happen, right? It's 2.5 months, fine, we'll figure it out. But then that figuring out was like a lot of figuring out, right? For the next 2.5 months, I think we all worked very relentlessly, figuring out right from how to make switches for the first time, to mirrors, to lighting, to dashboard, to UI, UX, to like everything coming together, to figuring out how to get 3D prints done, because in India at that time, such big printers were not there. We flew to Netherlands, got printers, printed parts, flew them back, got them assembled, and yeah, and somehow sort of few hours before the event sort of made it all work and put together, right? And I think this was one of those events, like one of those marquee events, I think in the whole journey of Ather, where it really showed the kind of dedication that everyone and the kind of vision everyone had to put together a product like this, right? And a majority of things we were just building it for the first time. And I think this sort of thing allowed us to have these three very big insights that we had, right? One is that ignorance is a blessing sometimes, right? Just because we did not know, I think we jumped into it. If we would have known how much effort and time it's going to take for us to build what we had set ourselves to, I don't think so we would have happened. To be honest, even Ather wouldn't have happened. If all of us would know that this is how much effort it takes to sort of build a company like this. The second part is, I think vision matters a lot. Everyone, like the people who are working on this thing, if all of them are aligned with this vision of building a product like this, it just becomes a personal mission for everyone to sort of push through. In that whole time, it was never that someone was asked to come and stay on a Sunday and like sleep on the office with a mattress and do that, but people just did it because they believed in the mission, and everyone sort of aligned towards that, right? And on the other side, it was also very crucial that we move fast but don't break things, because it's not software fully. It's hardware. Hardware is expensive if you fail. To be able to sort of get to a place where you're able to take the right risks while being able to not break yourself, I think was very important, right? So this is just the story of how sort of make a lot of things at Ather align towards building what we had built, and created that that engine of building products in India from scratch. Now, about design at Ather, right? Like what's the kind of thought process that goes behind it, how design is positioned at Ather, right? I think it's at the core, right? It's at the core of what Ather was all about, because the very first thing that actually we created as an idea was the very initial sketches of what you would have seen back in 2014, which Shantanu did. And that became like the mission for the whole company, to make sure that whatever it takes, we will deliver on that, right? And to be able to build a product from outside in and not an inside out was, I think, a dream for a lot of us, right? And for us, it's also about crafting the magic in every detail that goes across all the products. Now, as a structure within Ather Design, we have different studios which takes care of different aspects of things. We have Form Studio, which works on all the form, aesthetic, touch and feel of any product that we build. We have a Experience Studio, which focuses on all the physical experiences and the ecosystem products like the charging infrastructure, the accessories, merchandise, a whole bunch of things. And we have the Digital Studio working on all the digital side of products, be the HMI, the app, the website, stitching all of them together. And we also have Studio Engineering, which works on very early concepts of any product that we build, as well as crafting the very detail of how our design needs to translate into reality, and that can be produced at scale without losing its essence, right? So all of these sort of encompasses what Design at Ather is, and why design has that importance, right? Like, I think that there are three main reasons, right? That design wields the power to fulfill consumers' wants and desires beyond the usual functions. It's also about satisfying the emotional needs that people have with any of these products, because people do see these products as an extension of themselves and not just a functional thing. And especially, I think, with two-wheelers, it's a part of a family, right? It's almost that, and the kind of emotion that you would see around scooters or even majorly motorcycles and all the things are so much more emotionally driven, right? And on the other side, the whole design team itself is also responsible for building the brand and not just the marketing, right? So it's also important to have that well-defined design team in place. And how do we do it? As a team, we are responsible right from the problem statement to production. And we go all the way in. Our involvement is throughout the journey and making sure that we're able to deliver the right experiences that we want to build. We define not just the product, but the ecosystem around it, right? So because electric as a new system requires a very different way in which people are interacting with it, right? Charging is a completely new thing, and it's gonna be an inhibitor for people to adopt. So be it charging or any other experiences that you'll have with your service and other things, you want to make sure that they're well tied in together to create a holistic experience, right? And also, it's not just about making those experience for the sake of just doing that, but have those bits and pieces of magic in them so that there's a delight added to it, right? And that delight is what makes people sort of get attached to a brand, right? And that's the thing that we want to create for the longer run. And the kind of products we build is all about this clean, crafted, futuristic, right? And when you say clean, it's not just about clean and green. I think that's given because electric. But the cleanliness of the design, from its look, from the experience you have, how easy it is to use it, how much you can sort of rely on it. A lot of those things are something that comes out from clean. Crafted is the extra bit of details that you want to give to each and every product so that it satisfies that emotion for people, right? And obviously futuristic, because we are in a place where we are able to carve out what the future lies ahead with respect to mobility, and you want to make people feel that they're now being part of a future, right? And coming to where we are today on the whole electric revolution that has happened, right? And obviously, this whole thing is a big piece of moving the world towards an infinite energy future, because obviously, as a world, we will have to move to infinite energy source, and that's inevitable, right? But now, as Ather, we want to play our catalytic role in terms of moving that as closer as possible, because the world that you see that, or you can imagine when energy is infinite, it just is mind-blowing, right? And we want to be part of that world, and we want to move there as fast as possible, and that's what we want to sort of play that role to bring that future ahead. To just talk about some numbers, right? And I think this has been very crucial in the last year at least, that right now we have already reached a critical mass of around 10 lakh units of electric vehicles sold last year, which is around 5.4% of the overall two-wheelers. And the thing is, as India as a country, if the kind of development that we want to have and do, India moves on two wheels, right? And mobility is a very, very big factor of development for any nation. And the potential of the size of the market itself is so massive, right? Because today we have around 26 crore two-wheelers in the road, which even if you count from now, in the next 10 years needs replacement, right? So which means that's the size of market that we are talking about. And beyond that, India only has 18% of India owns two-wheelers, whereas a developing nation like in Indonesia is 48%, right? Which means that eventually India is going to go towards those kind of numbers for purely from a development sake. So it's a huge opportunity that is ahead of us, and that's something that we want to really tap into, and tap into using the kind of products that we are trying to build today, right? And the things that are to look forward to, right, for this is that there's a genuine premiumization that is happening within the industry, right? And it has happened on the four-wheelers side, it is happening on the two-wheeler side. I think people are willing to spend that extra buck if they get the right value. And today, I think with at least the electric products that we are building, I think we are building great value with the kind of experiences that we are building, be it the digital maps that you have, the kind of experiences you get on the product, and as electric as a platform itself, the kind of things that it really unlocks, right? And electric is getting into that cusp of shifting towards the early majority part, right? It's not only sitting with early adopters anymore. It's just 1 or 2 years ahead, and I think it will just transform the whole industry in that way, right? And for the first time, we are building and we are designing things from grounds up. This is not a JV, this is not any other company that we are collaborating to build any of these things, right? It's built here in India from scratch, designed, built, manufactured, everything here in India, and also products for India, right? And I think that's is super interesting, because we will be able to satisfy some of the very unique needs that India as a country has, and eventually also design it for the world, right? We design it for India, but also be able to go global with the kind of products that you're building. Because we are also, today, as India, the technology that we have developed is cutting edge in terms of two-wheeler technology. And it's actually at the top of everything out there, right? And the kind of critical mass of products which are also out there in the road, because sheer size of a country, I think we are at a great head start on really leading this change. Now, coming to the whole Humain part, right? To be honest, we have been dabbling with AI for some time, not so very seriously, but when I had the conversation with Sudhir, it sort of got me thinking, and sort of started I think fiddling around with it a bit more than I used to, and even within the team having more discussions about it. I think the whole thing that I realized is that it's about creating a new relationship, right? It's almost a new interaction that you're trying to build um, beyond what you're currently used to doing, and that is, and like any relationship, I think it's about that time that you need to give it to understand how it really shapes up, right? So I think one of the biggest, at least takeaway that I had is that I think there's a huge focus on the craft that can happen with AI, right? Because now you can actually automate a lot of mundane things, and that is something that can really take care of a lot of usual stuff that you're just used to doing it, and that takes a lot of time without you having the mental bandwidth to sort of focus on your real creativity, right? And I think that there's a great help that can happen there, and that is something that we have seen that does wonders, right? The And also doing it in a way where it's almost like building a second brain, right? You have your kind of like a digital twin in place who understands you, who's contextually there, who can help you when you need it. That system takes off the load, because I think as humans we are not really great at memory, right? Like or also, I don't, as creative people, I don't think so. We like to do things in a repeated fashion. It's more about how do you carve out that time where you can actually feel creatively satisfied and be able to still do the kind of work that is given to you to be done, right? And it also increases, it actually changes, and this we have felt, right? It evolves the decision-making process to a next level, because now you can do iterations like so many different iterations of things can happen at long. There's multi-level of insights that you can draw through data that you have, because especially for electric, the kind of data that we are able to capture is insane. And there's an overall exponential growth in the conviction of decision making at the very early stages of any design projects. So it all in all, it's just helping us to take better and better decisions. And on the other side, I think is the whole hyper personalization that can happen with the kind of products that you're building, right? Which is to be able to predict over react, right? To be able to curate products based on those need states, and like building niche which are not niche anymore, right? Like you can have multiple products and multiple things because you have enough data to understand that yes, these are the kind of people who will buy into such products in place, and you have the ability to capture those people, right? So all in all, I want to sort of conclude this saying that this whole quote, which always resonates with me, is that whole "stay hungry, stay foolish," right? It's a new thing. Yes, AI is a new thing, but I think that if you yourself have the ability to disrupt yourself, is the best thing to do, right? Rather than something else coming and disrupting you, and to be able to have that open mind to sort of do that, and be able to embrace it. I think it's that place where AI is today. So